to my channel. It's me, Shelby, aka Simplyshellaby. Welcome back. Today is part 2 of my Hafu Diaries series, and I am basically going to be talking about my experience living in Tokyo. So if you're interested in hearing about my experience in Tokyo, please stay tuned, and if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe, give this video a big old like, and don't forget to turn on those post notification bells. That way you get notified every time I upload a new video, and let's get into it. So let's talk. Living in Tokyo, from having been living in America my whole life, was such a huge culture shock and change for me. I visited Japan many times, you know, as a kid, and just every few years I would go visit with my family or even by myself. But living there was a different experience entirely. If you've never lived in a new country, especially a country where, let's say, it's not your native language, there will be challenges. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think living in Tokyo was such a great experience, and I don't regret it in the world. It was an experience I needed in my life and definitely helped to shape me today. But there are some things about living in Tokyo that I am kind of saddened about, and it changed my perspective of Japan and living there. So basically, I just want to talk about first how I got to living in Japan. So after I graduated from college, I really wanted to do something different with my life. Instead of just trying to work full-time right away, I really wanted to challenge myself and do something new. So that's when I decided to move to Tokyo, and I was applying to different jobs there or internships, some like, you know, working at a hotel or those type of things, because at that time my Japanese was okay. Like, my listening skills have always been better than my actually talking skills. So I was like, okay, what can I do that's English based but I still can practice Japanese? So there's this one like hotel job in Okinawa, but that one I passed on. And then there was this other company that I got an opportunity with, which was basically helping other people who want to come to Japan live and work there as well. So that job is what got me to move to Japan, because they were letting me stay at their share house and basically paying me like a little bit of money each month just for food. But housing was a big thing to be able to live there for basically free. So that was why, or how I could actually move there. So if you're looking to move to Tokyo, it is a really expensive city. So maybe you look at programs like that where housing is provided in part of the package to make it a lot easier to transition there. And when I actually got there, you know, I was really excited at first because I've always visited Tokyo but never actually got to live there, or never spent too much time in Tokyo per se. My family lives more in the Kanagawa, like Yokosuka, Yokohama side, so more near the ocean. So I never really visited Tokyo too much. We were more on their side. And yeah, so actually living in Tokyo was a huge difference. I want to talk about some pros living in Tokyo. And basically, like, if you have any questions too, please go ahead and comment down those below, because, you know, talking about my whole experience in Tokyo in just one video is really hard. So if you have any specific questions, please go ahead and comment down below, and I will either answer your comment or maybe make a new video with all the questions in the future. But basically, I want to talk about some pros. One big pro is, obviously, Tokyo is a huge city and there's so much to do. So the one big thing is that you never get bored. There's always something to do. You can hop on a train and go to Shibuya, to Shinjuku, to Ueno. Everywhere you want to go to is within limits reach. So you can go anywhere you want within Tokyo, and it's fairly easy to get around. 2, I would say just food in general. I love food, and food in Tokyo is so good. They have so many good deals and just so many good restaurants. And I mean, personally, I love Japanese and Asian food, but they also have other varieties as well. However, if you're American and you love cheese, or love cheese in general, the cheese there is like a little bit different. So I don't know about cheese things, but in general, great food. I love ramen, so I would love to eat ramen all the time. And yeah, I just loved, you know, the food scene and just cafes and coffee in general. Such great things. 3, if you want to practice Japanese, being in the culture is definitely going to help you so much. When I first got there, you know, my Japanese was really not the greatest. Like I said, I could listen but couldn't really converse as well. What really helped me is after my first job there, when that kind of ended, I ended up working for a Japanese company called Cafe Company, and they have tons of restaurants and cafes throughout Japan, and I did an internship with them and also worked at one of their cafes in Shibuya called Public House, and that was a great experience. I mean, it was hard because I learned Japanese business culture and just how to interact with coworkers, so trust me, at first it was really hard. After a few months of getting used to actually working at a Japanese style cafe with all Japanese coworkers, forced me to speak Japanese every single day, and I definitely got to get more comfortable with speaking Japanese and interacting with Japanese coworkers, just knowing the hierarchy and all the standards. So that was such a great experience to have been able to work with Japanese coworkers who, they were so lovely. At first I definitely, was stressed out. I didn't really know how to interact so well. I messed up, and if you ever worked in a restaurant, it's a lot harder than you think. But, it was such a great experience, and the people who worked there were so nice, and I appreciate them so much. And, that was such a great experience for me, and my Japanese improved so much being in that role. And another big thing I enjoyed about Japan is just the freedom that you have when you move somewhere new and you basically have to start over. You have so much freedom. Now it's up to you how you're gonna make friends, how you're gonna meet people, how you're gonna connect. But for me, the people that I met were through my work mostly. I did go to some things called meetup events, which I did meet some people through there, which was, great. And a lot of times people who go to those events just want to learn English or learn Japanese. So it really is a great way to meet new people, is by doing that. And 5, it was just, how do I describe it? Japan has so much culture, and moving to that culture, you learn so much about it and just how different it can be from America per se, and just it's such a new city vibe. However, there's temples everywhere or old shrines, and it's just crazy to see how transformative the city life is. But at the same time, within the city, there's a huge temple, and you're just wow, okay, I am part of this culture and I'm learning about it. And that is what, those 5 things I think are really important for me in living in Japan, and just connecting with my culture and getting to understand it on a different level. And everyone's experience living somewhere is going to be completely different, especially depending on what you're doing and things like that. But those were definitely my top 5 things that I really enjoyed about living in Tokyo, and just being part of the culture that my mother is from and where I was actually born. It was a great way to get immersed in it and really truly learn about how living in Japan actually is. Because as a young kid, I always thought I will live in Japan someday, and I did do that. And if you ask me would I ever live there again, I would say no. And I'm gonna go into that next with a few reasons why I didn't like living in Tokyo. One of the hardest things living in Tokyo is if you don't look 100% Japanese, life is maybe going to be hard for you there. I think that I look mixed race, however, in Japan, people would never think that I'm part Japanese, and I think also my name kind of gives it away. I don't have a Japanese name at all, and just living there, not looking Japanese, looking foreign, acting foreign, it's really hard to kind of do certain things. You're stared at, you're looked at, you're judged, all of these things, especially with doing any type of paperwork, which number 2, I really hated doing any paperwork in Japan. City hall stuff, bank stuff, it's just so difficult, especially if you have a foreign name. Even getting an apartment, I basically had to end up using my mom to get the apartment because my name, I just wouldn't fly. It's just I kept getting rejected by different realtors and companies, and that's just, it kind of sucks. And going to the bank was hard. I remember once I went to the bank, and I've been going to that bank for a while, and one of the guys, he remembered me, and I went there with my mom before, and he knew, I was Japanese or part Japanese and had Japanese citizenship at the time. And there was a new girl at the counter, and she's just are you Japanese? Like, I'm giving her my Japanese passport, and then the guy had to chime in like, yes, she's Japanese. So just instances like that, like trying to prove my Japanese-ness was just really frustrating. And if you're a foreigner who's lived in Japan, you might know, or if you're Hafu living in Japan and didn't grow up there, let me know down below, like, if you've experienced the same things. If you had a great experience there, no issues with any of that, that's great. Like, I'm happy for you. I wish I could say the same, but that was definitely a struggle for me, is just doing any type of paperwork things in Japan. They make it so difficult, and you gotta be perfect with it. Any mistake is like, no, tear it up, go to the next. So that was annoying. And 3 is just, I always had like this bubble around me, maybe, of Japan, that I just thought it was such a great place to live. It's such a cool city, it's so fun, you know, all of these great things growing up. Whenever I would visit there, I just love Japan so much, and living there and being immersed in the culture was great. But at the same time, you learn all of the almost bad things that you don't really think about when you're not living there. So for me, it was just, living there was extremely difficult without family or things like that. Yes, I had family, but they're kind of far from Tokyo, and just like your true immediate family or friends that you're really, really close to. I had friends in Tokyo, but the thing about being foreign there as well is a lot of your friends might leave. If they're also foreign friends, they might cycle out, you know, their visas might expire, they might decide to move back home, you know, all these things. So the friendships kind of last for a small bit of time while you're there. But just living there, I learned that it's not as fabulous as I thought it was gonna be, if that makes sense. Like, I love Japan still, I would visit there any time. However, I would never live there again if I had the choice. It just was way too hard. Trying to learn that culture that's so deep rooted is really hard to understand as like a westernized person. You know, I grew up in the States, and I'm just so used to things here, you know, just being able to do things that maybe you can't do there. You know, as much as I respect the culture, at the same time, it is really hard to get immersed and just live with it. And yeah, I just wouldn't never live there again unless I got a job offer there that let me speak English, and it was for an American company, because Japanese companies are really hard to work for. And it's a good experience if you want to learn Japanese and be part of the culture and learn the business culture, but it's really hard, I'm gonna tell you that. And I wasn't even in the corporate setting, so I could only imagine corporate setting. I think that I would go crazy. But yeah, those are kind of things that I didn't like living about Tokyo. And don't get me wrong, Tokyo is great. It's a fabulous place. If you want to try living there, I say definitely do it. Some of my friends who, you know, moved there kind of around the same time as me and that I was roommates with, they're still living there and they love it, and they don't see themselves leaving, and they're from different parts of the world. One is a Hafu like me, you know, one girl is from Italy, another girl is from Canada. And so, you know, you each find your own path in Tokyo. So you might go there and love it and want to stay there forever. For me, I loved it. I didn't want to stay there forever, and it just definitely tainted my, I guess, views on Japan, because as much as I love it, I think about the hard times that I had to go through while living there, and it kind of just makes me sad sometimes to think about. However, you know, Tokyo is a great place, and even if you never want to live there but plan on visiting, please visit. Japan is such a great place to visit. People are so polite, and if you're just a foreigner visiting there, like, your time will be awesome. Like, you're gonna have so much to do, so much fun, and you'll never get bored. So definitely please visit if you have the chance. And yeah, I just wanted to do a short little video on what I liked living in Japan and what I didn't really like about living in Japan, but I'm open to answer any questions about living there, how I moved there, or how I moved away, those type of things. So please go ahead and comment down below any questions or comments you may have. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe, give this video a big like, and turn on those post notification bells to get notified every time I upload a new video. And I hope you have a wonderful day and stay safe. Sayonara.